world, it's Dave again, and I got another book review for you here. This time, swapping away from the nonfiction to fiction again, and reading one of my favorite authors. Really, really enjoy reading this guy's stuff, and it is The Abyss Beyond Dreams, as per the title of this video. And it's really, really interesting. It's set in the Commonwealth universe, so the two most recent series that Hamilton's been writing was the Void trilogy, and before that the Pandora's Star and something like that, Pandora something. Anyways, I can definitely say just out of the gate, if you were to read this new one, it works as a standalone. So it's not like you have to read the previous ones, but there's dozens and dozens of allusions throughout the book that if you have read these previous ones, you're going to enjoy this one so much more. If only for the fact that one of the main characters is one of the main characters from the previous couple series, and like in all his other books, the strengths that you find in his other books you're going to find in this one. So it's very easy that if you've enjoyed his writing in the past, that you're going to likely enjoy this book now that he's written. And those strengths include the idea that if you have, because it's sci-fi, if you have a technology, it's one thing to write a cool technology into a narrative, but then, a good writer will put that cool technology forward that's something that you can consider, but then an excellent writer like Hamilton will then put it into a social context so you can see not only how this is present, but how it's affecting the society that it's in. And that takes place in this book very well. I want to be very careful when I give this review not to give away any spoilers, because so much of enjoying this book is being able to kind of be a detective, yourself, and to discover what it is that he's done. Because he also does this, I've said this before in other reviews of his books, that he'll lay down a little bit of foreshadowing in a book, and then as he progresses through the story, he increasingly makes whatever it is that he has foreshadowed that much more obvious, until at the end he's hitting you over the head with it, and then he reveals it completely to you. But if you're an attentive reader, there's the potential for you to be aware of some plot twist miles and miles ahead of when you actually do read it in the book. So that's really, really cool. Other strengths, if it's your preference that you might enjoy in this, is it's a really interesting blend that Hamilton's gone for within the Void trilogy and now within the Chronicle of the Fallers. I guess it's going to be a 2-book series, much like Pandora's Star and Pandora Unleashed or whatever, is that he's gone for, he's traditionally a science fiction writer, but I mean with the sort of depth of skill he has, is that he could write any genre, I would think, and the genre that he's now intermixed with this, that he's twined together, is fantasy, because when these books, not giving away any spoilers, takes place in the place called the Void, and within the Void, technology doesn't work in the same way, high-level technology anyways, and so it sort of reverts back to a lower-level tech that almost makes for a kind of fantasy setting, and that's a really interesting perspective. So you get blended, the sci-fi with the fantasy, and he does it really, really well, and in an interesting way that it's easy to enjoy. So I never give an official grading system like out of 10 or anything when I read books, because I think it's just there's too many subjective things that each person might enjoy, and everybody reads at a different level. So if I gave these scales of 10 out of 10 would in no way be anything like somebody else's 10 out of 10. So I just like to talk about the book generally. The big triumph of this book, I see, is that when I've read his books in the past, they're chock-a-block full of many things, whether it's philosophy, morality, all these different, high and lofty themes. But something that I really noticed this time around, without giving away really any plot, is that, or any spoilers anyways, is that you have 2 major plot lines that are taking place in the book. And so you have the one that starts here and progresses forward, and then you have another one that starts up at whatever point. You're not sure in relation to time where these 2 are matching up with each other, but I have never read in Hamilton's books before, or maybe I've not noticed until now, just how much the plots are intertwined, interconnected, and it makes for like I was talking about earlier, really, really good opportunities to be able to kind of sleuth, to detect things that he's already foreshadowed in one previous line as compared to the other, and you see how there's just so much forethought that's gone into the narrative to have them come together so clearly and so well. And I really enjoyed it. I thought I got most of them, but when I spoke to my friend later, he even enlightened me to a few that I'd missed, and I was like, wow, that's incredible. Again, never fear, if you've reached the end of the book, then he will have revealed all to you, but it's so cool to be able to find these sooner. And I think it's a real master storyteller who isn't, I guess it would just be, they call it like writing reactively, where you're just like, oh, I went here, and now I'll go here with the plot, but who has really created a full outline before they set out on their story. I can only imagine the amount of pre-work that went into writing this, because it just seems to be at every twist and turn that something is related to something later on, and makes it that much more enjoyable. You feel that much more an accomplished reader when you realize that it's happening, things like that. Incredible to talk about one other thing. I love the sense of scale in his universe as well, just because now this has taken place over however many years. And you end up with some characters that are like 1,300 years old, and they have a personality that totally reflects that. Again, it's just like the technology. It's one thing to say a technology exists, but then to, really accurately portray what that would do to the society. Same deal if somebody is however many years old. It's one thing to say that he is or she is, but then that their character would manifest itself, would show itself to behave in a way that might represent somebody who had lived for that long. So I really, really enjoyed that. I absolutely loved it. It's got humor, it's got great action. Something that I've said before, I was reading his first books because I wanted to see, has his style changed over time. And the first books that I read, something I really noticed and then has continued when I've read his stuff, is something you want to do when you write a good story, and you see it in movies as well, whenever you're developing characters, especially good guys, is you want to put them, or bad guys even, you want to put them in situations where you express in some creative way just how badass they are, or how intelligent they are. And you find that again and again in his books, that like he really knows how to empower his characters to make you believe that they represent the sort of thing that they're supposed to represent. What else? Also to talk about, I really like just straight up creative ideas that are original and never thought of before. At least I've not seen before, and I felt like there was a number of different areas in this book where I was like, oh, that's a really fascinating idea. I would never have thought of that. That's just straight up very creative. One particularly, which occurs near the beginning of the book, and I'm not going to give away much. Here's like the closest thing to a spoiler I have, but he invents a new type of horrendous crime. One that I was like, oh, that's a really interesting idea. It only could exist in this kind of sci-fi setting, and one I'd never thought of or heard of before. And so I thought it was really creative, and like a real hallmark of the Hamilton style. At the end of the Void trilogy, you get the same thing. He's come up with an idea that they don't even have to be terribly complex. They just need to be original, and he does it again and again. So yeah, I absolutely love this book. It's got a great ending. It's kind of funny with the title of it being The Abyss Beyond Dreams. The whole time I was like, so is that figuratively speaking? This is maybe the one spoiler that I'll give. So plug your ears if you don't want to hear. It's not that bad. But the title of the book is The Abyss Beyond Dreams. And the whole time I was wondering to myself, in what way does this book relate to that title? And if you feel like as you're reading the book that's something you feel similarly, it's not that you're crazy. It's just that I believe he kind of reveals the origin of the title of the book within the last, like, I don't know, 20 pages, 15 pages of the book. So you're not crazy if that at first seems out of place. Oh no, absolutely wonderful. I'm so stoked to read the next one in this. I think it's like A Sky Without Stars or something like that. Another one of these lofty titles that he goes with. It's provocative, gets the people going. I would, I think, do the same were I titling my book. But no, amazing, huge success, just like Hamilton, keeping up his tradition of great storytelling. And I think I have to say, like, this seems evolved, or maybe I've only just detected how evolved he is. And when I say that, when you read this book, be a detective, look for things that, hints of things that, did he say that because he wants me to pay attention to it? Because more than in any other book that he's written, and I've read almost all of them, it holds true that if something is said, it's usually for a reason throughout this story. What's a final thing I could talk about? Here's another thing in defense of Hamilton. If, for people who are going to come to this book after reading the Void trilogy, there is an easy criticism that could be made, but I think somebody would be missing the scope of what he's trying to succeed with. In that there might be, again, I'm being careful not to reveal too much, or trying to be careful, there are similarities between a character within this book and a character in the Void trilogy, and some people might say, oh, this is just like that character's, second reincarnation, and so I'm just reading the same story all over again, and you aren't. If you believe that, then he successfully tricked you and misled you. You are missing kind of the greater point of the story. And so that's all I can say about that, because this review is not to spoil it. But if you're interested in sci-fi, read this book. That's a given. If you enjoy fantasy and you've not read that much sci-fi before, this is a great stepping stone because it introduces those sci-fi elements, but then there's this whole cool fantasy aspect to it. So it's a great bridge for those who read fantasy but want to try out sci-fi. And for all those other strengths that I mentioned already. It's just an excellent book. There is no weakness here. It's only an evolution of his style that is shown just what a fantastic storyteller he is. So that's all. Now it's on to another non-fiction book for me, and I'll be trying to discover whatever that is. Somebody could recommend one to me in the comments. I'm not sure. I like anything really, biographies. And anyways, I'm rambling. So, please support the channel. Like, subscribe, share. It allows me to grow and to reach more people with these reviews. And like I like to say, until we meet again next time, world, ciao for now. Peace.